What happens to the ownership of your business if you don't have the appropriate legal documents signed? Stay tuned. You're about to find out. Hey there, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Conscious Counsel podcast with your host, Cory Sterling. That's me, founder and lead lawyer for Conscious Counsel. I'm so happy that you're taking the time to join me today as we have a lot of fun and dive into some really exciting and interesting legal stories that relate to health and wellness entrepreneurs. As always, my commitment in making this podcast and sharing it directly with you is that I want to help you protect and grow your wellness business with confidence and clarity. It's what I'm about. It's what I've always been about. It's why I take the time to sit and share these stories. And I'm really, really excited to talk about today's episode and today's topic, which is a really interesting one. So, a lot of the times when I'm thinking about what I want to share for my episodes, I just look at what's happening in my inbox and the sort of conversations that I'm having with my clients. And I imagine, okay, well, I'm in a lucky position as a lawyer who's done this for so many years that I have a clear understanding of what these issues are. And these problems that come up for me, it's just the next issue. There's always going to be another issue and something's always coming up. But then also I remember I'm like, well, if I wasn't a lawyer and I wasn't doing this, I probably wouldn't know about any of this stuff and I wouldn't understand the ramifications from doing things properly or not doing things properly. And so this week I want to talk about operating agreements and shareholder agreements and ownership of company. And specifically, if you run a business and you have a business partner, a really, really important question to ask is, what legal agreements do you have signed as it relates to ownership of the business? And this week I had two stories that are on the complete opposite ends of the spectrum. One where the client did something correctly and one where the client did not do something correctly. And just so everyone knows, the correct thing always is to have an industry-specific legal agreement drafted for you that meets your needs and what it is that you are trying to create in your business and the relationships that you're trying to have. And I thought, okay, cool, this is an awesome topic to share. So the reason why this is important and why this matters to you is if you run your business and you have a partner, you need to have a document that outlines the rules of ownership and who's allowed to do what and when they're allowed to do it and how much you're allowed to pay yourselves out. And if someone invested money to start the business, what are the rules around that? And do they get paid back beforehand? And what happens if someone wants to quit the business? And all the different things that can relate to owning and operating a business with another person. You need to have a legal agreement that outlines all of that. Now, maybe you're just thinking, oh, Cory, this is just another thing that we need to, this is just another thing that I need to have, or I don't know how important it is. But this is what blows my mind when it comes to operating agreements. So in the United States, if you have an LLC, the document that governs the ownership is called an operating agreement. In Canada, and you have a company, the document that governs the relationship is called a shareholder agreement. And what absolutely baffles my mind is that sometimes I work with clients and they're really, really good at business. They're good at building a studio. They're good at running retreats. They're good at offering their coaching services. They have employees. They've got tons of revenue. They spend so much time and money on their baby that is their business. And it's crazy because they don't even have the ownership documents organized and set up properly. And I'm always baffled. I'm always like, oh yeah, like we were going to do it. I'm like, don't you see how much money and time and energy you're investing in this thing that isn't properly protected? I understand that clients don't understand that. And that's why I take the time to record these episodes. And that's why I offer the services that I do. But it's really, really, really important because you have to make sure that the rules of ownership for your business are set up and organized clearly so that if there is an issue down the road as it relates to ownership, you'd be in a position to take care of it. Also, I've been part of tragic situations where there have been multiple owners to a business and someone had an accident, like a very, very, very serious accident that they were no longer able to continue with cognitive function to run the business. And their life significantly changed. And there was no agreement about what was owed to the family and how that would be paid and how you determine the price of what was paid. And it was a very, very challenging, difficult situation, which, if nothing else, just really reinforces the importance of having all of these documents set up. So the two stories that I'm going to share today, one of them is the classic bad story, nothing signed. And this is as straightforward as it goes. And I've seen this more than 15 times in my legal practice. Two or more people start a business. In this case, it was just two people, and they don't have anything signed for the ownership agreement. They're excited, they're working together, everything's happening, and they've never signed an operating agreement. So there's no rules specific to the relationship that they want to have about what happens if someone wants to bring on another partner, what happens if someone wants to leave, if someone invested money in the business, are they getting that money back? If so, at a preferred rate, or just no rules, just like the Wild Wild West. I recorded an episode a couple weeks ago about what happens when you don't have legal agreements, and I called the Wild Wild West. And unfortunately, this was a Wild Wild West situation because there was no signed operating agreement and the parties were unable to come to any form of agreement. At this point, they're fighting, they hate each other, they don't want to talk to each other. I'm sort of representing my client, working in an intermediary position, trying to come to a resolution, and it just sucked. And it really sucked, and it was expensive and difficult, and my client did not sleep for a really, really long time and was just constantly upset and wanted to quit this business. And they had a great business that was doing really, really well. They just couldn't figure out the ownership piece for themselves. Well, it wasn't that they couldn't figure it out. It's that they never had an agreement signed beforehand. And the whole point of signing an agreement beforehand as it relates to ownership of a business is you want to have something that outlines what is going to be done and who is responsible for what and what the rules are when there's a problem. So just think about getting married, and if you sign a prenuptial agreement or you sign something before, it's like, hey, right now we love each other and things are awesome. So why don't we just sign a contract that says in the event that we fall out of love and we no longer want to be together, we actually will be in such an emotionally charged state, we don't even have to decide, because all of the rules and all of the process and procedures are going to be there for us. And in this situation, they did not have an operating agreement. They did not have a document signed, and they were just fighting, and they paid a lot of money, a lot more than they had to or that they should have. In the end, to come to an agreement and have someone buy someone out, but it was just filled with negativity and frustration and resentment. And it was a bad situation that, for me as lawyer, my job is to get results for my clients. So that's what I do. And we were able to resolve it. But in the same sense, it was just like definitely months of that person's life that they would want back. And in the end, we were able to find an agreement. But again, it's stressful, it's frustrating. The business suffered significantly during that period as well. The relationship suffered significantly, and it just cost way more than it had to. On the flip side, I have another client who we did a whole bunch of work with. We set up their trademarks. We set up all of their documents for a new boutique fitness studio, and they had an operating agreement with 4 partners. So there were 4 of them. One of the agreements that we drafted for them was also an operating agreement. Cool. If someone wants to quit, this is what happens. If you give money, this is how we figure it out. Everything organized, outlined. 2 of the 4 partners wanted to leave. I got an email on Tuesday. Hey, Cory, this is the situation. 2 people are leaving. We just need to sign up we need to drop the paperwork. We went through the operating agreement. We understand exactly what the rules are. I was like, boom, 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 boom. 24 hours, signed. Everyone's out of the company. We amend the operating agreement to only have the 2 current owners, and they're already ready to bring on another investor. And it was just like, it was clockwork. It was so simple. It was so easy. There was no issues. There was no dispute. There was no fighting. It's like, hey, this isn't a fit. Awesome. Not everything in life always needs to be a fit. This isn't a fit. So let's move on. And this is the agreement that we signed about ownership and what happens if someone wants to move on, and if they made contributions, how they get paid back and how all of that works. And it was just perfect. And so I share that story because that's what I want for all of my clients. I want them to be in a position where if a legal issue comes up, you just have a document that's already outlined what it is exactly you're going to do, what the rules are, who's doing what, when they're getting paid, everything. And honestly, in 24 hours, you can turn it around. And the difference of 24 hours versus months of pain and suffering and frustration and anger, it takes a real toll. And the reason why I started Conscious Counsel was because I want to offer heart-leading law to my clients. I want them to be legally protected, and I just want any bumps in the road to be smoothed over immediately. And the way to do that is with excellent legal documents. So again, in this episode, what I talked about today was the importance of having documents around the ownership structure for the business, whether that's an operating agreement in the United States or that's a shareholder agreement in Canada. And I just shared 2 quick stories about what happens if you don't have the document signed and you have not taken the time to set it up properly, understand the type of relationship you want to have, communicate the expectations openly and honestly, versus what happens when you do things do properly and how quickly it can be resolved and taken care of. So I hope that you enjoyed this episode. I hope that the information was helpful. You can always just find us on Instagram at Conscious Counsel and shoot us a note and be like, hey, Cory, I love the podcast. I'd love to connect with you guys. We're here for you. And there's one other thing, whatever it is that you do, make sure you work with a lawyer who loves you. Have a wonderful day. Thanks so much.